Up and at 'em, everybody. Hank and Big Ben with you on this Tuesday morning. Worcester City Manager live in the studio with us. Thank you very much for being here with us. And the talk of the Commonwealth is the $111 million in COVID aid. How are we going to spend it? Let's ask Worcester City Manager Ed Augustus that question. Mr. Manager, thanks for being here with us.
No, good to be here, Hank and Ben, and it's great to see your luxurious studios here. The opulence is just impressive, so thanks for giving me a chance to be here live. You know, it is a really unique opportunity for the city of Worcester and for other cities and towns and states across the country to not only try to deal with some of the impacts of the coronavirus pandemic on businesses, on homeowners, renters, families, but it really is a chance to move the needle on some important kind of priority areas, whether it be water, sewer infrastructure, parks improvements, other areas. So I've put forward a list of recommendations of about $100 million to the City Council. They'll take it up tonight at their August council meeting. I've also suggested about $10 million be put aside to do a series of meetings around the community and get input from neighborhoods, from residents as to what their priorities are. There's also another $36 million that's going to be coming through that has not been recommended yet because we just got word yesterday that that's coming through from the state. So there's plenty of opportunity to identify other needs and other priorities. But if you look at the areas that I'm recommending to the council, it's improved water and sewer infrastructure, which is much needed. It's something that people don't always think about. We have the luxury of not thinking about it day in and day out. But you talk to Flint, Michigan, and ask them what it's like to have a water system that's not reliable. You know, we know in Worcester we've got an aging infrastructure here, so we need to continue to invest in that to make sure that our stormwater, our wastewater systems are up to date, meeting the EPA regulations, as well as continuing to keep the high-quality drinking water. That's important for residents, but it's also important for business. Our biotech industry is very reliant on water. We have companies like Polar that are reliant on the quality of our water, so it's part of our economic future as well as our day-to-day, you know, life in this community. So, and we also supply water to Shrewsbury and to some of our neighboring towns. So we sell water to some of our bedroom communities as well.
Tell me a little bit more about this $100 million. So part of it going to the water and sewer, which seems, you know, pretty clear cut. Did you have, I mean, does the city just sort of have a wish list of if we were ever to get $100 million, here's what we would use it on?
Well, we certainly have tons of things we can never fund in their entirety. So every year when we put the budget together and we do our capital budget, there's always many, many millions more worth of projects that we'd like to do that we can't get to. This is going to allow us to get to a lot more of those projects. In the parks area, I'm recommending we build our third spray park in the city of Worcester at Tacoma, down near the Great Brook Valley area. We have a large tract of land that's in the Parks Department. It's a very tired swing set area there. I'm proposing we completely redo it, put a spray park in, new playground, a new rectangular field that'll serve the kids of Great Brook Valley as well as that corner of the city. Our other two spray parks are at East Park and Greenwood. So there's nothing on that corner of the city for a, you know, aquatic opportunity for kids. And we know this summer when we've lost some of our aquatic facilities because of, you know, bacteria outbreaks in some of the natural bodies of water or some of the issues that we've had in terms of staffing at Crompton and Bell, these opportunities are really important. So we would be able to do that. The Worcester Jobs Fund, training Worcester residents to get the jobs where there are futures, you know, CDL licenses, biotech sector, building trades. So there's so many opportunities that we can really benefit and impact positively the people of Worcester's lives who've been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic.
Yeah, it's interesting because my guess would be, or I've already seen it and we've already heard it here. I mean, those who feel that, well, 10 million, why didn't we get to decide, the whole 111 million? I think part of it you've already answered because probably not too many people would have said water and sewer. So there are things that are just infrastructure needs. But how did you sort of decide that, well, $10 million will have these community meetings, we'll let people decide? Why not $50 million?
Yeah, why not $5 million? It's the nature of the roles that we have. So my responsibility as the chief executive officer is to make recommendations to the city council about how to spend money. That's what I've done. The city council, as the elected representatives of the people of the city of Worcester, have the chance to change those priorities, redirect those priorities, validate those priorities. But that's the system of government we have. And, people run for office to be able to represent the interests of the residents of Worcester. So we certainly want community input, but we do listen all year long. We hear people come and talk about the needs, the priorities. I'm out in the community. So I think water, food insecurity, housing, jobs, arts and culture, all of these things, business assistance, are priorities. I don't think there's many things in here people are going to say, where in the world did that priority come from? They're things that I think are reflective of the priorities of the city of Worcester. The Worcester Together group did an informal survey. They asked all the partners to rank their priorities, and I was really happy to see that it almost perfectly dovetailed with the itemized recommendations that we put forward. So, and these are not specific. So there's piles of money for housing, for arts and culture. We're not itemizing all of the categories within those. We're going to put together programs where there's like $6 million for small business. We'll put a program together where that'll go out to small businesses. So it's just really putting the budget together for those categories as opposed to the specific projects within those categories.
All right, and you said perhaps another $36 million coming in.
Yeah.
How was originally went where?
So the legislation, because some parts of the country have local governments and county governments, wrote in there that there was a certain allocation for county governments. In Massachusetts, most of the county governments have been done away with. And so the money goes to the state to be then allocated to the municipalities within those former county governments. So the city of Worcester's share of that is $36 million additional dollars.
All right, so the $10 million we're talking about, it could be more like $46 million that people are deciding where it's going to go.
Basically a third of the amount that the city of Worcester is getting. So there's plenty of opportunity to have say. And again, think about those buckets. Those buckets have not been determined. So there's plenty of opportunity to say where the $6 million of business money is going to go and how that's distributed, where the arts and culture money is going to go. So there's opportunities within these buckets. These are just mostly categories of spending.
And how do the community meetings, how are those going to work?
So I sent into the city council dates and locations and times for 3 meetings that we'll have in different neighborhoods throughout the city. I think one's at the Boys and Girls Club, one at the Senior Center, one at Quinsigamond Community College, where people can come in person. There's also going to be a location on the website where people who can't make those meetings want to send in recommendations and ideas about how the money should be spent. They can do it that way, and that will help us decide how to make the allocations with the rest of the money.
Mr. Manager of Victory in Court for the City of Worcester, when it comes to Doherty Memorial High School and that moving forward, just your thoughts about that?
So important. We had a meeting last night of the Doherty Planning Committee where we advanced some of the final elements of the design for Doherty High School. You can see the site is being prepared now where the old field was. That's where construction will start for the new school. They've fenced off areas around the old school. The old school will continue to operate for the next 3 years while we build a new school right next to it. But this is really a critical investment. We're going to open South High School in a couple of weeks, which is about a $225 million investment in the kids in the South High Quadrant with a very impressive state-of-the-art educational facility that has everything that a kid in a suburban high school or private high school would have in terms of performance spaces, athletic spaces, field houses, science labs, just everything that you'd want in a 21st century educational environment. And we'll do likewise with the Doherty Quadrant. I would mention, because I know we were going to touch on climate change and resiliency, Doherty High School is going to be built in a way that it's actually carbon negative, meaning that it will produce more energy than it uses. So if you think about that, what a benefit that is not only to the planet and to the environment, but to the taxpayers. If we keep that school for 50 years, 60 years like the previous Doherty High School, and don't pay any electricity, heating, air conditioning costs because we're generating enough electricity from solar panels and extra insulation, et cetera, that we actually sell energy back to the grid as opposed to consume energy, that's good for the taxpayers, that's good for the environment.
Any other obstacles to Doherty Memorial High School that you can see? And just also, if you want to throw in your thoughts about the kids in the athletic fields and how all that's really going to finally kind of play out.
We haven't heard from the other side whether they're going to appeal that decision. Certainly that's an option that they have. I'm hopeful that they don't do that. The judge was fairly definitive in his dismissal of the suit, feeling like there's been a school there for over 60 years. That original transfer of land had been reviewed by the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, approved by the state legislature. So it was, I think, handled appropriately by the folks in charge back in the early 1960s, and that has been, validated by the court. So hopefully we can move on. We're all committed to making sure Newton Hill Park remains the gem that it is, and part of the project calls for improvements to the walking trails. Some of the retaining walls around the park will be shored up and improved. Some of the parking area that's at the head of the trails there would be improved with lighting and cameras and stuff. So we're not just building a high school, but we're also improving the park and the access to the park. So we think we're trying to be good stewards as well as create a good educational environment for the kids at Doherty. Hopefully we'll be able to kind of move forward.
I know that there has just been some conversation in the community, and even as it moves forward and decisions have been made, you're confident that the kids, the athletic fields, just how sports is going to be. It's so important to young high school athletes that is a part of the plan that is to your satisfaction.
Yeah, I think I put in the capital budget, not the federal money, but the capital budget the council approved back in the late spring. Recommendation for $3 million to upgrade the fields at Foley Stadium. So there's the football field, which is the main field, and that field had been improved by a combination of city dollars and Berkshire Bank, formerly Commerce Bank, had adopted that previously, and they also just helped us redo the turf field there. Now we're going to do all the outfields. There's 3 fields that kind of are on the Pleasant Street side of Foley Stadium complex. We'll do turf fields on 2 of those. We'll put lights, cameras. We'll do an outbuilding there that'll have bathroom facilities, storage for athletic equipment, which will really support not only the Doherty program, but really the entire Worcester Public Schools program, because that facility is used by all of our high schools and middle schools. As well as the community. In non-school time, we've got a lot of adult leagues and other youth leagues that use those fields. So it's going to give us more robust scheduling ability because of the turf and because of the lights that really add. O'Connell Field will be coming online very shortly, just down the road. We're going to use that for the Doherty football team. Again, with turf and lights, we can use that a lot more aggressively than you can some of the grass fields, which need to be rested, particularly after football and things that can be really rough on the fields. The turf fields can take a beating. So, we'll figure it out. We'll get through. Ultimately, as the old South High School gets knocked down, there'll be a new field built there. That's going to help support the South High athletic program as well. So we're just in this kind of pinch phase during transitions with some of these projects, but we'll manage. And I think at the other side of this, we'll have a lot more really first-class athletic facilities for the kids in the Worcester Public Schools.
All right, we do know that you have to get going. We appreciate your coming in and your time. We've got a lot more to get to. Let's end then with something that you had mentioned a moment ago. This report came out yesterday. Dire is not even the word for it, that we may have reached the tipping point and gone beyond when it comes to our ability to reverse some of the climate change that is happening or to have an impact. Ben on Vernon Hill may become beachfront property at some point 30, 40, 50 years from now, the way that they're talking about the sea level rise. What's happening in Worcester? I know that part of what you have done in your tenure as city manager is you've really focused on the green aspect of doing new projects.
Again, we did put a green Worcester plan together, which the city council approved again back in the springtime. It's a pretty aggressive plan. It was, made up of, we had a consultant as well as a lot of community stakeholders who were involved in this issue that really put some, aggressive goals for the city to accomplish around buildings, around our blue spaces, around electric charging stations, and we're working toward, advancing those, and that's part of that is the Doherty High School. The way we design that building is consistent with the Green Worcester Plan. That Green Worcester Plan informed some of the decisions we made in terms of how the building is designed in order to meet those goals. So it's us putting our money and our actions where our mouth is in terms of that plan. We also created an Office of Sustainability. So John Odell heads that up. He's a cabinet-level official. And I was meeting with him and Jackie Burmeister, our Blue Space Coordinator, yesterday, talking about all the things that we're looking to do to improve our blue space, which is part of the Green Worcester Plan. That's important because we don't want to continue to see some of our recreational bodies of water go offline because of bacterial outbreaks and other things. One of the water infrastructure things I'm recommending with the federal money is a forebay at Institute Pond, which would prevent the silt that accumulates in the pond and makes the pond more shallow, which really compromises the water quality and impacts the wildlife and just the aesthetic of the pond as we're building a new walkway around that pond. So we're doing so many different projects, so much more to come. This new infrastructure bill in Washington, I think, is going to provide additional resources to states and cities to build out green infrastructure. So I think the time is right. Worcester's prepared. We have a plan. We have an office, and now with these federal dollars, we'll have the opportunity to really do something significant.
Mr. Manager, on your way out the door, how are we doing getting people vaccinated?
We're doing well, but we need to do better. We've got close to 70% of the folks in the city, at least with one shot. We want to do better. We need to do better, particularly with some of our harder hit communities. We've put out every week an aggressive schedule of vaccine locations. Every Wednesday, just as a default, you can come to the Worcester Public Library. You can get a vaccine, no appointment necessary. Just walk in, 11 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. If you haven't gotten your second vaccine, please do that. That's going to add to your efficacy of the vaccine. I used the analogy before back in June, and I think it's exactly spot on. The Delta variant is like a heat-seeking missile looking for people who are unvaccinated. It is going to catch up with you if you are unvaccinated. It is nearly 98% of the cases in the city of Worcester are Delta variant. It is now almost ubiquitous in the new cases. Our cases are going up. We're close to 30 cases a day. We have been 5 or 6. And we don't know what the future holds. When you look at South America and Africa, places in the world that have 2 or 3% vaccination rates, there are new variants that are churning in those places. We don't know how effective these vaccines are going to be against that. We need to do all we can to slow the spread of this because this virus is fighting to stay alive. It is evolving and morphing to try to stay alive. And we've all got to work together and try to kill it once and for all of our sake.
Does that include a mask mandate in the future?
Expect an announcement from me, certainly about city facilities in the next day or so. I think we're going to have to really revisit what we're doing as a city government, and we're also going to have to keep an eye on what we do as a community.
Worcester City Manager Ed Augustus, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, Hank. Thanks.
We have much more to come. It's the Talk of the Commonwealth on the Radio Worcester Network.